basically a forum for showing off corporate jets, the NBAA has been described as one of the biggest and slickest events of the year. Kohn has just been to the event and joins us in the studio now to tell us all about it. Eric, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to see you again. Now, to quote the CEO of the National Business Aviation Association, he said there's a general enthusiasm of the event, not euphoria, but a belief in the future. Is this a sort of sentiment that you yourself, having been at the event, would agree with?
No, I think there is hope, and there's a real big difference between the US and Europe. In the US, they need business jets to get between factories and plants in locations where there isn't an air service, and therefore corporates use them very practically, although people who can afford it are buying big business jets, but the smaller business jets are still not that popular, with the exception of Pilatus, which has sold out the first 3 years production for their new twin-engine jet. And the hope is really also impacted by the fact that there's a shortage of pilots now in the United States. The second and third tier regional airlines have grounded a whole lot of planes, and they serve smaller places, because the FAA, in my view, quite rightly so, have said that co-pilots must have a minimum of 1,500 hours, because they had quite a few situations where junior co-pilots nearly had accidents. So that's been mandated now, and as a result, there aren't enough pilots in the United States. They can't get visas to bring in foreign pilots, so a lot of regionals have just grounded their airplanes, which helps the business market a bit. And of course, Europe is very, very different. Here there's an oversupply of airliners flying to places, and we have a different regime with pilots, where you can have a pilot who's done what is called an MLP and mainly worked on the simulator, and he's allowed to fly with an experienced captain with very low hours. So there's a big, big difference.
Indeed. I mean, that's the kind of general review of the industry itself, but talking about the event as well, what would you say were the biggest takeaways?
I wouldn't say there was any one particular takeaway, except that the big business jets are selling, so that people with money, or corporations with a lot of money, are buying, and the smaller business jets are having a real hard time, and I actually think that will continue. Of course, the business market in the US is very, very different, because there are no Eurocontrol fees. You don't pay any fees for flying. You don't pay any fees for landing at airports, because they're all government-owned and they're free. And so it's a different atmosphere. But I think there was a lot of hope for the future.
Okay. Now, about 30 of the exhibitors were from the Wichita area. Their presence was designed to promote Wichita and safeguards its position in the aviation industry. Were you impressed?
Probably not. I mean, Wichita took a very big hit at the time that the automobile executives flew down in their corporate jets, and President Obama didn't quite like that when he was having to bail them out. And Wichita is the home of Cessna Aviation, which is owned by Textron. Cessna lost more than 50% of its business after Lehman Brothers. It probably hasn't come back in the smaller jets. They're moving to the bigger ones. Cessna's just recently bought Beechcraft, which are the twin-engine turboprops, and probably the same aircraft in different forms has been going for 30 years and is still doing extremely well. But there are job losses in Wichita. There are unemployed people in Wichita. So Kansas is trying to help it. But I wouldn't say that their presence impressed me at all.
Okay, so still perhaps not the situation that it once was, but in a kind of a nod to current events. Read a few articles that they actually added a session called the Ebola Risk Management for Business Aviation. Obviously there's a lot of scaremongering, particularly in the US, and what's going on and how it should affect the airline industry, how it should affect passengers. The speakers were were supposed to discuss what passengers should expect from the airline authorities when embarking on trips, etc. Now, you were at the event. Did you get the impression that the corporate industry has been affected in any way?
Absolutely not. And I would say not even the airline industry. You get a lot of senators and congressmen saying, well, we should stop planes from West Africa, etc. But actually, at the NBAA, Ebola was a non-topic. It wasn't even discussed by people in talking about matters. What really people were interested in is developing their business and how it's going to happen in the future. And that was probably more important than Ebola. I mean, Ebola is hyped up on the television in the US, but in the NBAA it had very little impact at all.
Okay. Now, obviously, you're joining us from Barron's. From your point of view, what did you gain from the attending the event, and what do you?
Well, I was in the United States because we have a couple of clients. One is, interesting enough, a flight academy that trains in 2 locations in Florida for both the FAA standard and the European EASA standard pilots. That was quite interesting seeing how that was going, and they're bringing in quite a lot of foreign students and trying to train US students, but the real problem is where to place them afterwards to get experience, even though there's a pilot shortage. And it was interesting seeing the various, I'm on the board of an aerospace company based in Canada that's on the Toronto Stock Exchange. It was interesting seeing what various companies are doing, because we supply some of the companies with aerospace or structures for building their aircraft. So, as I said, I think there was hope, but it isn't booming.
Well, Eric, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming back and telling us all about what you experienced at the event. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, well, that's all from Eric and myself. There's more coming your way on Dukascopy TV, so make sure you keep clicking back to the website. Goodbye for now.